Pretty quickly in politics. A few weeks back, I had lunch with Scott Morrison. Now, this is way back when he was the Social Services Minister and Tony Abbott was the Prime Minister. One or two changes since then. We've got a new PM and my dining companion has seized the Treasury. Now, people describe Scott Morrison as ambitious, hardline, even arrogant. But I've also heard compassionate, devout, and a rabid Tina Arena fan. Clearly, the man requires some further investigation. For Scott Morrison, I made a vacherin, which is sort of like a pavlova, only with chopped nuts folded through it. The meringue is sandwiched with cream, orange slices, and my current culinary obsession, date syrup. Let's go meet the man who now has control of the national kitty.
It's probably one of those politicians door knocking. It's Annabel. Annabel, how are you?
Hi,
Lovely
that was
to see
unexpected. This is amazing. This is the first time I've ever been greeted with flowers. It's kind of like the cabinet bachelor or something.
You could say that, you could say that. Well, come on in, come on in.
This is memorable already. Oh, look at this lovely house.
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
It's beautiful. Very compact.
It is.
Lovely.
No, it's great for, you know, a small family, but South Coast is just a gorgeous place.
You've been here for long?
We've been coming here for some years. This whole area we've been coming to for 30 odd years
right,
since
Jenny and I were
kids.
Place.
We
It's
rent
not,
this place,
right,
you know.
okay.
We don't. Sadly, we don't have one of our own, but
Right.
it's a great place to come and rent.
So what are you cooking? I mean, I'm guessing possibly a curry.
We are doing a curry today, and we're doing a Sri Lankan seafood curry, which is
Nice.
pretty simple. Even I can do it, and we'll have some samosas as well before. So
Right.
they're a little trickier.
These are your personal samosa, ScoMosa recipe.
That's what my staff have called them, the ScoMosas. Everyone's getting used to this new nickname.
All right, so can I help? Where do we start?
Well, what I'm going to do is we're going to start with the chapattis.
Oh, you're making your own
I'm
chapattis.
going to make some chapattis because I
What
find
a Renaissance man you are.
It soaks it all up, which is great, and we'll have a bit of rice with it as well. We don't need too much because
With your free pour.
there's only two of us, so that's not going to require much. We'll throw a bit of salt in there.
So you decided to start cooking earlier this year. What drove you to that?
Well, you know,
Was it Prince Philip being made Australian of the Year? Just your despairing response is, the only way I can make it through this is to make
for a start,
curries.
I was sort of around a bit more on weekends now, which is a good thing. In my previous portfolio, I used to have to travel a lot more overseas with various things.
Right.
And it's a bit more predictable, the new portfolio, so I
Right.
can sort of plan to be home on a Saturday now.
Right.
On a
so
Saturday
night is...
It's family. We'll watch a family movie or something like that with the kids, and you know, Jenny and I will have a sip of wine or something. I'll have a beer and watch a movie, and I'll cook the curry, and then they'll all laugh at me, and then we'll all go to bed.
Sounds adorable.
It is. Anyway, I better get into this.
So when you had your epiphany and you thought, I'm going to become a cook, how did you approach that?
Well, it's got to be something sort of interesting, and I'd sort of fallen in love with Indian food and
Right.
Sri Lankan food. I had quite a significant trip with Julie Bishop and Michael Keenan. We were in opposition.
Is any trip with Julie Bishop insignificant?
She'll remember it well, and we were over there obviously working with the then Sri Lankan government on and how we would be pursuing our policies with them, and it was a very important trip. And we went and had a fantastic meal in this fairly dodgy little restaurant, and it just said to me, you know, wherever you went in Sri Lanka, the food was fantastic. And washed down with a good beer. And Julie, remember that night there, I think it was the first beer she's had since she'd been at university. And the beer was, I think, taller than she was, and it was certainly stronger.
Right.
It was like a 12% special.
Right,
so we had a great meal. And that was just one night on what was a pretty horrid sort of busy trip. But for one night, we enjoyed Sri Lankan food.
On, Ultra.
and we wandered back to the very very modest accommodation it was that night. There were no sheets. There was no. Julie she told us she had a little towel which she used, and there was a bucket for the shower that night. So.
Whoa!
It was quite.
Wouldn't have got that with Bromman Bishop.
Well, they're entirely different issues. Yeah.
Yes, quite.
Anyway, I better try and get my hands into this because it's not surprisingly not going to plan so far. But anyway, probably a little bit more flour and I'll be good. If you want to just chuck a bit more flour in, that'd be good.
I'm not really a very good sous chef, am I? Sorry.
Keep going. Now starting to reconsider the whole.
No, don't give up now.
Let's do the chapatti plan.
No.
Anyway, no Indian or Sri Lankan meal is complete without two things: mango chutney.
So is that with a fresh mango?
Fresh mangoes, and you've got some raisins and your mustard seeds and a few herbs and sugar and so on. So, it's going to pack on the calories.
But texture there.
Okay.
So now you and Jenny met when you were pretty young, right?
We were very young. We both grew up in church families, and that's where Jenny and I met when we were quite young. I think it was about 12 or 13.
Right. You had your eye on each other.
Well, at 16 we were going out and got married when we were 21. So.
Oh, that's lovely.
But it's great because we've largely just grown up with each other.
Yeah.
And when you go through a life like this in politics, lots of things change, but when one thing doesn't.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's good.
So tell me about growing up. You grew up sort of Bronte area in Sydney, near the beach, right? Yeah. Your family's a pretty interesting family because your dad was in politics, wasn't he?
Dad was in local council. He was also a policeman. He
at the same time.
At the same time, he was talk about separation of powers.
I know, this is a real rule of law issue going. So your dad was the mayor of Waverley
and the local area commander of Waverley at the same time.
What happens if some vote didn't go his way on council? He's like, call in the Rozzers,
I suppose,
arrest that man. And so, were you very involved in your dad's political career? I mean, were you door knocking? Were you a kind of?
Yeah, I was, and I quite enjoyed the theatre of it all back then. When you're a 9-year-old. Boy, my brother wasn't as much into it.
Did your dad ever get you to pick up the phone and handle the constituent calls?
Well, I did, because my brother would never answer the calls. They'd come in the afternoon. Dad, would still be at work. Mum would be at work. So I'd be sitting there talking about people about their parking down at Bronte Beach or something. At the age of 9, fielding constituent calls.
Were you offering them solutions to their?
I'd have a good listen to them and a bit of a chat, and it was very local. That was the thing, but it would get a bit. Because Dad was well known for being his role in the church, and I've found whoever sort of says anything about their religion in politics, if people can't, carry an argument, they'll just attack your religion instead.
Right.
And I learnt from my dad and people like Bruce Baird and others that, your religion's your business. It's your relationship, and it's not for others to judge. And people can make up their mind about whatever they like, but at the end of the day, you can judge my policies, but my faith's up to me.
Yeah, right. So, but when you were a little kid, and you came from a religious family, and they were you were Uniting Church. Yeah,
that was Presbyterian we grew up, and then they went Uniting when it changed over.
I was a Uniting Church kid in the 70s. Made a lot of cardboard arts.
It's true, they were very big on the wall hangers. I don't know what that was.
So much macrame.
It was very exciting. Okay, we're going to start cooking the curry. Now, this is a local fish. This is called latchet.
You've done something to it, haven't you?
I've put a bit of tamarind and a bit of salt.
Oh, right, nice. Latchet.
Latchet, yeah. I usually do it with ling, but they didn't have any ling, and the blokes over at
if you like
Vincentia,
ling, you'll love latchet.
Apparently it comes from up on Wollongong way, so
right,
they tell me it's an authentic South Coast fish.
All right.
Now I'm told I need 5 cloves here.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good fresh garlic.
Stir all that around.
Is this what cabinet's like? Everyone's sitting around with a cool drink while you do everything? Obviously, you don't have to remark on that.
Operational matter.
It's on water, is it?
It goes for a while.
Hey, I've got something to show you, by the way, while you're distracted.
Yes, I'll stir it.
My sources have discovered a school photograph of you.
Oh dear.
Clovelly Primary School, 1979, year 6K.
And look, I had a tie on.
You're the only kid in the class.
My dad would have insisted, I can promise you.
Whoa.
6K.
So when you were getting teased, are you sure it was because of the Christianity? I'm thinking it might have been some other stuff. You also were quite a theatrical family, I read somewhere.
Yeah, my parents were big into that. They loved it. They ran the local sort of theatre group.
Right.
it's only just closed down now, I think. And one year they did Oliver.
Right.
And so Mum and Dad insisted my brother and we go in it. And
So the whole family was in the cast?
the whole family. Mum was Mrs. Sowbury, I think the name was. Dad was Fagan.
Naturally, he cast himself as
he was
Mayor,
Fagan.
Police Officer Chief and Fagan.
Chief Cream.
I'm learning a bit about your dad.
And I was the Dodger, and my brother was in the chorus, and I was fun with a lot of these things because Mum and Dad were so busy. Whether it was helping Dad out on council or doing things like this, this is where our family spent time together. So we had lots of other time, and they were always
wearing
there.
sort of fake raggedy clothes and saying, "Got to pick a pocket or two, boys."
We did all of that.
And you were a kind of a child TV star, weren't you?
For a few years after that, my mother traipsed me around various commercials and photo shoots and voiceover singing things.
Do your thespian urges still, no?
No, my runway days are behind me.
Right, okay. I've just had an epiphany. What your parents were doing was making you unembarrassable, basically.
Yeah, well, they were pretty good at that, Mike.
Right.
My dad was particularly good at that. But
So there's nothing that can happen to you in your life
Been there.
that is more embarrassing than everything that happened to you up until the age of 12.
pretty much.
I feel we've concentrated heavily on your achievements as a kid, but then you went into university, you studied economics.
Yep.
Were you very political at uni?
Not at all.
Right,
I
so
thought
you
they were
weren't-
weirdos.
So you weren't, giving away free beer with Joe Hockey or...
No, I thought all those guys, I don't know where they found the time or why. I was more interested in playing rugby and hanging out with Jenny and,
Right, okay.
and doing all
Weirdos.
that. I was completely disinterested in those things. That didn't mean to say I didn't have my views about politics.
Yeah.
I had a lot of views about politics. But at that point in my life, it just wasn't... I had friends in other places.
So you actually came to politics by way of the tourism industry, didn't you? I mean, you worked a lot in tourism. You were also the head of Tourism Australia.
Yeah, for a little while.
Wow, that was a really enthusiastic, yeah.
That was a tough gig, but anyway. I was proud of it. Lara has been unleashed on the world.
What, you gave us Lara Bingle because you were...
She's a good Shire girl, Lara. Mum
Yep.
still lives down the Shire.
Yep.
And good luck to her.
And so Where the Bloody Hell Are You was the dominant ad campaign
It was.
associated with your leadership.
It was a campaign designed to, get attention, get recognition, and to cut through, which it certainly did.
It certainly got a lot of coverage.
And it increased tourism spending in Australia by about $4 billion a year.
It's an incredible car chase, wasn't it, that ad? Because every country had a different issue with the slogan, right?
They did. It was quite... You had to... I was doing a lot of work moving around at that time trying to deal with a lot of those issues, but none of those were unanticipated. None of them were unanticipated.
I sense a defensiveness because you are kind of worried that people think you had it not under control. You're like, that was all supposed to happen.
I ended up leaving the organisation, not because of that campaign, but there were some differences of view about some stuff, and ministers trump chief executives, and that's the way of the world.
So what were the differences of opinion about?
Look, we don't have to go back over those
It's an
now.
on-water issue?
It's an on-water issue on that one.
I'm just unwrapping one of your pre-made ScoMosas. Ooh, that's very good. Nice execution.
We've got a few of them in here.
Okay. Well, they're bubbling away nicely.
I never know how long I might need your help a
You're
bit
just
here.
cooking the pastry really
I'm just
till it's
cooking the
nice, that
pastry
golden brown.
and heating it up a bit on the inside.
I think it's going according to plan. You look nervous, but you shouldn't be. Stop jabbing it.
Oh, okay. You're not allowed to touch. Is that the rule?
You're just fiddling, to be honest. You're over-managing.
One can do that. One can do that.
Right. You're a bit of a Mad Tina Arena fan.
I am. I think she's wonderful. And this is a point of contention with Jenny and I. She likes Tina as a musician as well. She just thinks my interest in her music is a little unhealthy.
So it's an obsession. It's an obsession, isn't it?
She's such a classy lady, and she's completely down to earth.
Have you met her?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh.
But she's always
This is a
impressed
cry
me.
for help, isn't it?
She's very impressive. And
Was
she's
that
got,
young
she's got a
talent
voice like
kind
an
thing?
age. Maybe it was. I don't
Yeah.
know. We're probably. I think we're about the same age. But she never sort of ran away from all of that. She always sort of owned all of it. And no, I thought that was classy.
You just love the idea of someone else with an embarrassing childhood.
Maybe that's what I'm connecting to.
Can can I carry...
How about take the rice and we're good. Just, I'll come back for the other.
Oh, okay. Whoa.
A very special part of the
It's
world.
beautiful. You can see all the boats from here.
You can, not too many.
Yum. Gosh, this looks so great. So where do you suggest beginning?
Samosas.
Of course.
You might need a fork.
No.
Yeah, the tick.
Some mustard seeds in there too.
There are some mustard
Beautiful.
seeds.
Gee, that chutney's good.
It lifts everything, chutney. You can cover
the
a
right amount.
multitude of sins. Just throwing a bit of chutney.
When you got the first phone call from Tony Abbott telling you what your portfolio was going to be, and it was immigration, it wasn't an exciting moment for Jenny, your wife, was it?
No, this was back. This was back in 2009, and Tony had just become leader. When we're driving to my parents' place to pick up the kids, I think we were doing it. It was that Sunday afternoon, I think, when those calls are made. And I saw Tony Abbott's name come up on the... Jenny was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and she just looked at me and said, anything but immigration. Anything but immigration. And I go, mate, yes, yep, okay, of course. Thank you. Immigration. And we managed to stay on the road because, I mean, Jenny she understood. Jen's not political. She's not naive about what politics is about.
So do you ever think it's ironic that your, I guess, first big public national job was encouraging people to come to Australia, and then your next one as a minister was to encourage them not to come to Australia?
Well, it's just a sequence of events. But the whole point about having stronger borders, for me, was about the integrity of the whole system. It's never been about immigration. It's never been about those issues at all. It's about having integrity about the process by which people come to the country.
Your role in that operation required you to be a certain way, didn't it? I mean, you had to have a certain demeanour. In your press conferences, I mean, you became very well known for your militaristic, impassive press conferences.
Well,
was that part of the strategy?
Well, it was deliberate, and it started well before the election, before he came to government, because those who were thinking of making the voyage, and more importantly, those who were thinking of running the smuggling, needed to understand that if we were elected, their worst nightmare had arrived. And whatever they tried, wherever they would seek to make a break in our policy, that they would find an absolute brick wall.
So you had to be the worst nightmare?
For the people smugglers. Because that was the only way to stop them.
It's kind of the ultimate utilitarian equation, isn't it? You try to hurt the fewest people, but you accept that some people will be hurt, in some cases might suffer quite considerably as a result of your decisions. Is that sort of the essence of politics?
Well, particularly when you're dealing with life and death consequences. I mean, there are no simple answers. It'd be lovely if they all just had a conference up in Southeast Asia and all of a sudden the people smugglers decided they wouldn't be sending any more boats and it'd all be solved. But the world's not that simple. This part of the world in particular is not that simple. And one of the things I learned from my father is crooks are crooks. And, they will keep going until you stop them. And they won't be
the victims of the crooks are in a slightly difficult situation.
Well, it was never about having a position on the victims of the crooks. And in many ways, they're the people we've prevented from, now perishing at sea.
I'm interested because I can't be the only person who watched you on the telly and thought, I wonder what that feels like to be that person.
You're like a human being like anyone else. The same things impact me that impact anyone else. I remember the debates in Parliament, and I remember people weeping in the Parliament and all the rest of it, and they would say that on that particular day, because of that particular event, they felt the full emotional burden of what was happening. Well, to be fair to Chris Bowen and I, that's what we dealt with every day. And for people to make assumptions in this debate, the one thing I would ask on occasions is I make no assumptions of bad faith on those who hold a different position to me on this. I know they care deeply about the humanity of people and the issues that they were going through and why they would advocate a particular set of policies. I've rarely found the reverse extended.
Should we have some curry?
Sure.
do rice and then we can use the spoon for the curry.
Is that enough? Get yourself some good sauce.
Yep, that's plenty.
Now you can have a bit of chutney with this too. Right up.
Get it. Oh, that sauce is good. And I think the latchet's held up all right.
Latchet's done
Whatever
okay.
it is.
Our gong fish. I think the ling might sort of keep its place on other occasions, but the latchet was a worthy substitute.
Qualified endorsement
But
from the cabinet.
the sauce is it's all come together quite nicely.
Let me ask you about the development of your faith, because you grew up as a Uniting Church kid, like me.
Yep.
But then you moved to the Hillsong Church when you were after you were married.
Yeah, after we got back from New Zealand.
So why and what's the difference? I don't.
Well, we've always only really been interested in going into a local community church.
Yep.
And that's what we've always done. When we moved to the Shire, we moved to a local church in the Shire. So
that's Shire Live, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is sort of a bit like Hillsong.
Yeah, it's a Australian Christian Church's church, and it's a local community church. In that denomination, every local church is autonomous and is in charge of its own business and how it conducts itself. And so that they do great work in my local community. I'm happy to support them, and they've been a tremendous strength and encouragement to me.
I mean, I've heard other people in politics who are worshippers of different denominations say of you, well, he's a happy clapper, What? The term happy clapper, how do you feel about that one? Because it's a kind of dismissive thing, isn't it?
It's a bit dated. It doesn't really fuss me. I tend to just let these things go off my back. It sometimes is motivated, I think, in a very negative way. Sometimes it's just, having a good giggle. I mean, Peter Costello always refers to me like that, and he does it in good humour and good nature, and it's not meant anything other than that. So you got to laugh yourself.
It's like people in American politics, whispering and speculating about Mitt Romney's Mormon underpants or something. There are, I guess, religions that other people don't necessarily, or denominations that other people don't necessarily understand, or with your church, I suppose it's like, what's with the speaking in tongues?
I don't know. I don't do it myself, so I wouldn't know. But
haven't you got your badge yet?
No, look, these churches are incredibly mainstream, and I think most people have had anything to do with them understand that, and often people will attack what they don't understand or don't feel comfortable with.
Before you came into Parliament, you wanted to have a family for a really long time, didn't you? But it didn't quite happen the way you were hoping.
No, we got married very young, as you know, and we, like I think most people, assumed that things would naturally take their course after a while, and after a while, when it became fairly clear that wasn't occurring, we went through the nightmare that lots of young people, and not just so young, go through with fertility issues, and it was heartbreaking, and it was particularly heartbreaking to watch someone you love go through it in Jenny, because it's always harder. It's more invasive, it's more difficult, but without going too much into all of that, it was tough. And a lot of things get tested when you go through those sorts of experiences in life, as they should. But it drew us closer together. Many couples, it finishes them off, it drives them apart. That's no reflection on them, it's just one of life's bitter hands.
You became those people who have 10 or more years of IVF.
14 for us.
14 years of IVF.
All failed. And we conceived children naturally, ultimately. So...
you are the person that everybody's great aunt says, well, that's Scott Morrison, 14 years.
And that's the worst thing you can hear when you're in that situation. And because when you're in that situation, it may not work out. And it mightn't. And the hardest thing about it is coming to terms with that possibility. And Abby was born in my main speech, she was born on the 7th of the 7th of 2007. And I don't think that was by accident, and that's a constant reminder to me about who's in charge.
Right. So God changed his mind after 14 years.
I don't think he did, and I don't think he changed his mind at all.
So when people say of you, as they often do, he really wants to be treasurer, Or
They're wrong. They're just wrong. I don't know how many times I've had to say this. They're just wrong.
do people ascribe motives to you, do you think, though? And does this happen in politics broadly,
Often.
right? So, and why does that happen? So is it because you're not in this kind of factional club sort of thing, right?
Could
you
be
thought
that.
they were all nerds at university. You're not... There was a lot of confusion about where you were factionally early on in your career, right? Because, I mean, the hard right will seem to be kind of against you because you were they thought you were a bit of a moderate. And then they wouldn't let you join one of your own branches.
Yeah.
I'm guessing those people don't say that to you anymore, by the way. You're too left-wing.
No,
You don't get a lot of that?
No, and look, I think over time, you know, where I stand on issues has become more apparent. And the thing is, I've never changed. I've never moved. I've always been in the same place. And I do get a lot of people, you know, ascribing motives and positions to me. And look, I just see that as their issue, not mine. And what should I have done? Not stop the boats. What should I have done?
There's lots of people saying that on your side.
Yeah, what should, I mean, look, I'm pleased that in the things that the Prime Minister has asked me to do, I've had some success, but I openly acknowledge I didn't do it on my own. I had tremendous support, particularly from Tony. So, look, he asked me to do something, I'll do it as best as I can. Now, if that means people go, well, he gets some things done, isn't that good? Well, good. What's the alternative?
Why do you think people are confused about your motivations? Is it because you don't belong in a factional stack? I mean, the famous story about you was back in the early 2000s at the Liberal Party Council. You went to the right-wing dinner and the left-wing dinner on the same night.
I was with, though? I was with Hefo.
Were you?
I was, so you could understand.
Bill Heffernan.
You could understand.
God. Well, you could go anywhere with Hefo. He's always
and
armed.
I have. So Hefo said, oh, we should go out the other one. I went, yeah, OK, Bill, off we'll go.
What do you love most and hate most about being a politician?
The thing I love most about it is I get to do something every day. Every day, and it's even better if you're in government. It's much better if you're in government from the perspective that every day I can make a decision and do something that I know will impact positively. That's a rare privilege. And it sounds a little twee, but it's the reality. That is why we all walk through, you know, the slough of despond to the muck and all the rest of it, because we all know, particularly those of us who've been there, that that's worth the sacrifice. The thing none of us like about politics is, I think, all the, you know, many of the things you've raised today about, oh, what does such and such think about this? And I've just learnt not to care. And I really don't that much.
That is a good, simple answer. Myself, I'm in it for the food, so thank you very much. This has been a tremendous and surprising spread. I've made some dessert. Yeah. Shall I unleash it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Marvellous spread, Minister. Thank you.
Sri Lankan pavlova.
I'll give it a Sri Lankan pavlova. It's just a very weird, rare Sri Lankan pavlova. No, this is probably slightly more of a Middle Eastern feel. It's a vacherin, which is kind of like a crunchy pavlova.
How good's that? That looks great. Yeah.
Thank you for organising such sparkling weather. Your powers are extraordinary.
No, it really was. It couldn't have been a nicer day to be here, actually.
True.
And you can see why it's a favourite.
Well, thank you for having me in your little bit of hiding area. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. This looks great. Cheers.
Cheers to you.
I love desserts.
So, please, sir, do you want a little more?
I reckon I will.
That's your Oliver cue, dude. Do it.
Oh.